Government was published yesterday. Lots of information in it. It's a large document. There are lots of proposals and promises in it. To talk a bit about that and the formation of this government, I have Minister for State for European Affairs and Defence and member of the Fine Gael negotiating team for the programme for government, Jennifer Carroll McNeill. Minister Carroll McNeill, good morning to you.
Morning to you and Happy New Year to all your listeners in Kerry.
Same to you. You must be pretty happy. Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil back in government. A deal has been done. Next Wednesday we should see the election of Micheál Martin as Taoiseach. The programme for government published yesterday. Can I get your reaction first of all to people who would be critical? And there's a number of letters in the newspapers this morning critical of the deal done with the independents, or asking what deal has done with the independents that certain constituencies, including here in Kerry, will be prioritised over others across the country as part of the price of going into government with independents. You have been insistent that no deal has been done. Is that really credible?
That is credible. I'm a member of the negotiating team. That is every member of government, every government TD, and that includes the independents who will now be government TDs, is treated equally. Many of them come from the same constituency and will be raising the same priorities. And, you know, it is a simple fact of life that in government you have better influence on policy, and anybody participating in government has that better influence on policy. Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil spoke with everybody in the Dáil, bar Sinn Féin, whom they said they wouldn't. But we had conversations with the Labour Party, with the Social Democrats, with independents of various technical groupings. And everybody is treated equally, and it's about influencing policy in developing the programme for government, and then it's about getting on and implementing it. And much of the programme for government is specific, and much of it is enabling for the minister to get on with work, get on with developing a programme within their department, and everybody in government, all of the government TDs have a real opportunity to contribute to that, but nobody is specifically preferred, not even cabinet ministers. I can assure you there's an illusion that is so, but I'm telling you in real life.
Maybe there's a perception. Maybe there's a perception. Let me put this point to you. In the real, that's all fine and well officially what you've just said, but in the real politic of Irish politics and the way it has worked, there's a perception out there, and perception can become reality when it comes to how people view politics in terms of who claims credit for that. If you have a senior minister, your county will do better. If you have an independent kingmaker, your county will do better. 'Twas ever thus. So you're saying that's all changed, and do you think the people of Ireland will believe you when you say that?
The people of Ireland are entitled to believe whatever they like. I'm just saying it's a little bit overstated from time to time, and sometimes people have an interest in overstating it. But I think what's really important is that any government is really listening to the TDs, the government TDs in that constituency who are bringing these issues to them. So if I'm a minister in any department and a government TD comes to me and says, there's a particular issue, I really need you to see if you can figure out, we can get a solution. I may or may not be able to solve it, but by God, will I work closely with that TD to get the best information that I can and to be as responsive as I possibly can. Of course, absolutely. It's a representative government. TDs are representatives of their people, and they fight. In my own constituency, I fight for the schools and for the hospitals and for the people in my constituency. But just, but we have, in Ireland as a small country, we have a centralised process of, for example, a national development plan where we have committed to roads and public transport projects all over the country, and they all have to be delivered, and there isn't one preferred over another. They all have to be delivered, and that is what we've done in this programme for government, is recommitted to the development plan, which will be reviewed now in the coming period this year, and that's a really important review, because at the end of the day we have a certain amount of money that we have to spend. We need to invest as wisely as we possibly can. We need to have the best connectivity. We need to have, and that includes delivering roads projects in rural Ireland. Yeah. That includes delivering public transport, regional airports in rural Ireland. But there is an equality approach taken to this island. We want to see regional development because we want to prioritise that, because we feel Dublin has gotten too strong, and we would like people to have every opportunity to live with everything they need in rural Ireland in the same way as Dublin. So that's an important national consideration. I think sometimes it is. And the plan, the programme of government sets out a plan.
But what do you say to the criticisms that's already coming? That it's aspirational. It says explore a lot, examine. There'll be a review of this and a review of that, and you'll be assessing this and considering that. That all amounts to very woolly promises, does it not?
But there's, as you've said, this is a hugely long document, and there are very many specifics in it. And then there are other areas where we are not sure if we can, if something is realisable, if it's practical, if it's possible, if it fits well with European position. But we want to signal a commitment to try to see, is that something that can be achieved? And so there are places where it says, explore, can we see this? Now, that is enabling for a minister to take that for 5 years and work that out. It really, really is. And there's so much in this that we want to do in relation to housing, in public transport, on delivering for disability, and this is enabling. And then it is up to constituency TDs, and like somebody like Brendan Griffin did this so effectively. Kerry TDs have had this such a strong representation for so long. But I mean, there is so much that because of the representation of the TD working really, really hard, there is no question but that projects get delivered. But I think it overstates it for somebody who, like me, for example, who has been in government for a little while. I think it might overstate it a little bit to say that it is the minister who is always unlocking the key. By God, it is the hard-working TDs in government that unlock things, people like Brendan.
Let me ask you about the specifics on housing, the wider goal of delivering 300,000 new units by 2030. You've put in hard targets there. Now, there's criticism of your government for not doing enough, quickly enough, in the last 5 years on housing, continuing problems in planning and other areas like that, issues with labour, trying to get enough houses built. What you're putting before the people, what you put before the people in the election is that, look, the housing is like a massive tanker at sea, very slow to turn it around, but we have turned it around and now it's going to gather steam. Is that ultimately what your government is going to be judged on? If we're here in 2 years' time and you haven't ramped up housing enough and cracked into it in a major way, that will be a failure?
I think you actually have set out some of the real challenges there in housing. So planning had been a big difficulty. We've enacted a huge piece of legislation to try to overcome the difficulties, particularly sort of random objections or objections that come from very far away. Like, I have no business in Dunleary objecting to something in Kerry, but that is sort of what has been happening. That's ridiculous. On the other hand, then, the labour constraints are a very real constraint. And we want to bring, more people into the country, but recognising that that's not always straightforward. We extend our critical skills list. But you yourself have set out some of the external constraints in housing. But it's your job to fix those.
I'm saying is, if you don't deliver quickly now on housing, within, I'll give you 2 years, will that be a total failure, given what you've promised to people? In terms of
what we have promised is delivery of housing. It's certainly, around where I am, there's nothing but housing being delivered, but it's still not enough considering the population growth and where we want to be and what we want to do in broad terms on affordability. So we need to continue that. There's simply no question. And that's going to be the same for any government there. But I think what you see is people have seen the numbers increase massively over the term of the last 2 governments from an absolutely standing start. And now, we were getting complaints about too much housing or too much of this housing or too much of that type of housing. So, we just have to simply keep going with housing. And there's a big focus in the document in relation to vacancy, dereliction, making all of the different starter home schemes, the different measures of affordability, like the vacant home grant, like the first home scheme, making that much easier for people. There was so many schemes.
I understand that, Mr. And we will talk again about that in another time. Very briefly, if you could, what do you say to the people of Fine Gael party in Kerry who are wounded after this election? It's a divided party, very rancorous behind the scenes debate. The seat was lost. Fianna Fáil now have 2. What future for Fine Gael in Kerry, you as a senior party member?
I think there's always a strong future for Fine Gael in every county, but particularly in Kerry. And I'm so pleased to see Councillor Mike Kennelly contesting the Shannon election, and I wish him every success. And I would hope that all the councillors in Kerry would get behind another Kerry representative, to have another government representative like Mike Kennelly, who's contesting the Shannon election at the moment. I think Kerry would do best to get behind its own at every turn, and that's within the Fine Gael party, but more broadly. And there's no doubt, we've lost a big force in Brendan Griffin and his broader family and all of the people who work so hard for the people of Kerry, and they are very big boots to fill, no question. But Fine Gael will have, will take a seat back there and will represent the people of Kerry as they have done so strongly and so well for so many generations. And I have total confidence in that. And from a Fine Gael perspective, we are totally focused on making sure that Fine Gael is representing the people of Kerry in the Dáil. But in the meantime, I very, very much hope to see a strong representation of Kerry in the Shannon through Fine Gael, and I would encourage all the councillors to get behind their Kerry men and women but I'm not sure there's any Fine Gael. It's a Kerry man, Mike Kennelly, in the Shannon to represent Kerry very strongly.